Dear moderator, distinguished professors, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Welcome to my presentation. This presentation is entitled Nexus between China's rare earth supply and Europe's energy metamorphosis, implication of
Между
geopolitical and
поставками
country risk indicators.
редкоземельных
This
материалов
paper is
и
authored by
их
Professor Oleg Marif,
последствия
Professor, Graduate School of
геополитические
Economics and Management, and me,
программы.
Mohammad Monirul
Мы
Islam,
совместно
Assistant
писали
Professor,
эту
Bangladesh
работу
Institute of
вместе с
Governance and
профессором Олегом
Management, University of
Мариевым.
Dhaka, Bangladesh.
Меня зовут Манирул Ислам, я
This
доцент Бангладешского
presentation will take not more than 20
института
minutes. I hope you
управления.
all cooperate. So
И
firstly,
надеюсь, все будет.
the content. So firstly, the contents of, we explain the background and motivation of this research, the research objective, contribution, then materials, method, findings, and finally, conclusion and policy implication. Of background and motivation, dear audience, climate change challenges that are ominous reality in the contemporary world. And all the countries of the world are experiencing these climatic events or climatic vulnerability. And that mainly emerges from the greenhouse gas emissions. Scholars have a consensus that the only solution to tackle this greenhouse gas emission or environmental susceptibility, so that is the only solution, that is the cleaner production process or cleaner energy transitions. And that is mainly based on renewable resources. But if the countries of the world, they want to develop this cleaner energy hub, that requires ample amounts of materials or rare earth elements. These elements are usually used as the raw materials for manufacturing clean energy technologies, and these technologies are wind turbines, electric vehicles, solar instrument panel, battery storing power system, etc. So this goal of renewable energy transition that has been added in different countries nationally determined contribution agenda. So European countries have the same attempt or same enthusiasm to develop the clean energy, targeted clean energy transitions. But this clean energy transition needs the ample amount of mineral resources as well as rare earth elements. So this European countries has not that type of reserve they can mitigate or they can maintain their demand for the. So these countries, European countries, mainly import these critical minerals mainly from China. Policy Economic Institute 2023, their report revealed that European countries import 98% of more their rare earth elements from the China. If you see the figure 1, it shows that China is the China has the greater or greater mineral rare earth production countries in the world. But the problem is that these rare earth elements trade between China and Europe, they're highly susceptible to geostrategic and different country-specific risk events. The geopolitical events like nuclear threats, terrorist threats, war threats that are pivotal in detrimenting the rare earth trade between China and Europe. And not only these geopolitical events, but some of the country-specific events are highly responsible and that have the significant influence in influencing the trade between Europe and China. These country-specific indicators are that's internal conflict, corruption, religious conflict, ethnic conflict, and other types of volatility like investment profile, volatility investment profile, socioeconomic condition, and governmental stability that has been instrumental in hampering the rare earth trade between China and Europe. So this is the overall contextual scenario. Based amid this contextual scenario, this research formulates a possible research questions. This research question is how China's rare earth elements export respond to Europe's clean energy production in the context of geopolitical and country risk phenomena. Next slide, please. So our objective is very clear. In this study, we will mainly examine the response of Chinese rare earth exports to European transition to clean energy, where we consider the decomposed country-specific risk indicators. Both are positive and negative, and geopolitical turmoil that includes nuclear, terror, and war threats. So our contribution is enormous in this research. First of all, this is the pioneering study that include to examine the response of Chinese rare earth elements export to European 14 countries clean energy metamorphosis. And here we utilize the advanced economic technique. And not only this, our another contribution, we incorporate the decomposed country-specific risk indicators and geopolitical events into modeling approach in the nexus between China's rare earth elements and European countries' clean energy revelation. And we know there is the common correlation problem and heterogeneity issue. So we utilize the dynamic common correlated effects mean group technique, and it shows not only the generalized findings but the country specific findings. So in this case, this is another important contribution of our research. Next slide, please. Okay, our materials and methods then. So here is the data you see that we considered the data Chinese rare earth elements exports that mainly European countries import from China and European countries renewable energy production. And geopolitical risk, we decomposed it into nuclear risk threat, nuclear risk, geopolitical risk, terror threat, geopolitical war threats. So here we source their data from Caldera and Equivilla 2022, and they mainly decomposed it. Nuclear threats is, their parameter mainly scale, it is 1 to 10. So this is the mainly newspaper tally. This data is mainly collected 10 main US based newspapers. They collected this data. And number 4 is considered the nuclear threat, and among the 8 categories. And among the 8 categories, terror threat is considered number 5, and war threat, in accordance with the intensity, war threat is number 1. And we also considered in this research the country risk indicators, negative and positive phenomena. So country's negative phenomena considers it comprises 4 elements. These are religious tension, military involvement in politics, corruption, and internal conflict. And country risk indicator, that is positive instruments that consist of 3 indicators: a country's, mainly European countries' investment profile, socioeconomic condition, and governmental stability. So for making these country indicators negative and positive phenomena, we utilizes the principal component analysis approach. Next, please. So here we use the different materials and method, diagnostic test, or mainly the co-integration technique. We use the Western co-integration technique and dynamic common correlated effects mean group. So we find the data set has heterogeneous, and heterogeneity exists in the data set, even in the and it has the problem of autocorrelation as well as endogeneity issue. So check this issues, I think we consider the dynamic common correlated effects mean group technique. And we also utilize the causality analysis, p-based Ganser non-causality analysis with GMM style. Then, okay, this is the overall findings. So this is the descriptive statistics findings. So we see that mainly in the between and within options, we find the heterogeneity exists in the panel cross-section, and variables. That means we can consider that cross sections and variables are heterogeneously distributed in that so in that case normal regression technique cannot work. So we have considered dynamic common correlated mean group techniques. Okay, now this is we also utilize some diagnostic test, slope homogeneity test, cross-section dependency unit and Westerland co-integration technique, where we find the heterogeneity exists in the data set, and then whatever. And we also find the cross-sectional dependency and variables stationary status is mixed order of integration. And we also utilizing the Westerland co-integration technique. We see that p-value and robust p-values are significant. It means that the variables have the long-run co-integration. So from that point of view, we utilize the dynamic common correlated mean group technique. Next slide, please. Okay, this is our findings. Firstly, we see how the European renewable energy production impacted by the Chinese rare earth elements exports. So we find the positive response of Chinese rare earth element exports to the European renewable energy production in all countries, except for some countries like Hungary, Netherlands, and UK. But in case of UK, it is insignificant. That it shows that all countries of the mainly these 14 countries, most of the countries are utilizing the rare earth elements that they imported from the China. And in case of other countries, they are utilizing the other types of minerals like nickel, copper, aluminum that are also utilizing here. So this is that means our hypothesis like how the Chinese rare earth elements imports respond to the European clean energy transition process, and it is proved. Next slide, please. Okay, then we also find the positive impact of geopolitical risk, mainly nuclear threats. So overall mean value is positive, but we see some countries has the positive geopolitical nuclear threats has the positive impact. In the case of some of the countries, it is negative impact. So the question can arise why nuclear threats are mainly positive in terms of in case of other countries. That is because of nuclear is still the nuclear threats or geopolitical risk. They are negatively influencing the fossil fuel based raw materials. So it may be one of the important causes. But in the case of other countries, nuclear threat influencing negatively the Chinese rare earth elements export in the context of China. Next slide, please. Then here the same findings. Terrorist threat is overall its mean value is positive, but in case of some other countries it is negative. So there is the mixed findings we considered here. Next slide, please. But the war threats have the negative influence on the Chinese rare earth elements export. So war threat is pivotal in influencing the Chinese rare earth elements export, and that is imported by the different European countries. Next slide, please. Then the overall positive impact of country risk indicators on the Chinese rare earth elements export, because positive countries indicators like socioeconomic condition, government stability, and investment profile of European countries is remarkable. So it mainly encourages the Chinese rare earth elements export, and they are importing without any types of detrimental consequences. Next one. So please, previous one. Okay, here previous one, please. Okay, so here we see the negative country risk indicators that has the negative impact. because we see the even internal conflict, religious conflict, and different and different types of corruption practice is still the European countries are experiencing. So from that point of view, I think it has the negative consequences on the Chinese rare earth elements export in the context of European countries. Then finally, please, next slide. Yeah. Now our result is robust, utilizing the PVAR-based GMM style Ganjar causality test. Here we find the bi-causal relationship between renewable energy or clean energy transition and Chinese rare earth elements imported by the European countries, and also country risk indicators positive, and Chinese rare earth elements are positively their causation or their bilateral, they are related. Thereby, we also find the bilateral causation. And in the case of other instrument or other variables like geopolitical risk, nuclear threat, terror threat, and war threat, and geopolitical and country-specific indicators negative, they have the unilateral relationship. Next slide, please. So our result, we also utilize the diagnostic inquiry for a result. Here we see GMM criterion QB, its value is lower. So lower the value of GMM criteria, it shows the goodness of fit model. And we also utilize the Hansen J chi-square test. Here p-value is insignificant. It means that this model belongs to the goodness of fit. So this is our result. And finally, please next. Finally, the conclusion and policy implication. And in this study, we investigate the response of Chinese rare earths export elements, export and Europe's clean energy meta-performances utilizing the geopolitical and country-specific risk indicators. So we find the positive response of Chinese rare earth elements export on the clean energy transformation of European countries. Worth it has the negative impact, but on the other hand, nuclear and terrorist threats has the mixed impact. And we also find that country risk indicators, positive indicators are positively influence the Chinese rare earth elements trade or imports, but country risk negative indicators are the negative. So we have some policy implication. Our policy implication is very straightforward. First one, we suggest to establish a mechanism to monitor and manage the availability and accessibility of the rare earth minerals for expediting European countries' mineral energy transformation. Our another policy suggestions, active engagement of policymakers in diplomatic negotiation and international collaboration. And that is needed just to reduce geopolitical risk and to reduce the disruption of the supply chain of rare earth elements. And finally, to tackle the country risk indicators negative influence, we suggest to apply country-specific strong governance mechanism to control the detrimental effect of countries' negative indicators for a smooth transition process. And finally, last but not the least, to establish a trade-oriented consensus between Europe and China. And European countries already developed CMA, that means Critical Mineral Act. So they are trying to reduce the dependence of other countries, especially Chinese exportation of the minerals in their country. So this could be very fruitful if they can execute this act in this purpose. Then rare earth elements can be utilized properly, and European countries can expedite their energy transition process. Thank you very much for your patience.